Shirley Bassey, there we go, Gold Finger, no prizes for that one. Wonderful, lovely.
What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening. 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 I'm going downtown tonight. What's going on?
Right, now, playing up at Theatre Clwyd is the touring production of the Jim Cartwright classic Rise and Fall of Little Voice. This one stars TV favourites Shobna Galati from Coronation Street and Ian Kelsey from Emmerdale, and New Yorker, two-time Drama Desk Award nominee, actress and impersonator, the brilliant Christina Bianco, as the extraordinarily talented Little Voice LV. It closes in Theatre Clwyd today with two shows at 2:30 and 7:30. I will give you the number in a moment if you would fancy trying to get yourself a couple of tickets. But before then, I am thrilled to say I am joined on the line by Little Voice herself, Christina Bianco. And Christina, it's been an extraordinary couple of years, hasn't it, for everyone, especially in the entertainment industry. It must be great to be back doing what you do best, right?
Yeah, you know, it's been really interesting, I think, for a lot of people who work in the arts, and particularly the performing arts. It was especially awful because all of our work pretty much stopped. But in other ways, our work is always so up and down, and we have it and then we don't. And so it's always so volatile and unpredictable that I think we were also quite emotionally prepared for a pandemic, which sounds terrible, but you sort of, without having that consistency of having the same 9 to 5 every day, you learn to sort of go with the flow and roll with the punches. So I'd say as an industry, it's clear we very much did, but I can't tell you how lovely it is to be back in front of a live audience and performing, and for such enthusiastic audiences as well. So it feels like coming home.
Absolutely. And you're back on the road. You're back on the road with the Rise and Fall of Little Voice, which we'll talk about in a moment if that's okay. But
sure.
You're a New Yorker. People in North Wales can tell from the accent. I suppose touring for the UK. Touring around the UK must have benefits for you. Do you like to do the touristy thing? Do you do that?
I love it. I really do. So I'm born and raised in New York, but actually as of February, I am a British resident. I'm here on a 3-year visa. I've really loved my work in the UK over the past, 8 years or so. I've been spending so much of the year here, and mostly England, but also Scotland, and seeing a little bit more of Wales every time I come. And I just love it. I think the grass is always greener, and I love the quality of life here. I love the food. I love the atmosphere. I love it even in London. I'm in a hustle and bustling city, but it still is more quiet and clean, and the buildings are lower, compared to New York City. So it's funny if I tell people London is relaxing to me, and everyone who lives in the suburbs in the United Kingdom thinks I'm crazy. But yeah, I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the opportunities I have here and the friends I've made here. And so my husband, dog, and I made a little jaunt across the pond just because we didn't want to wonder what if anymore. We wanted to make the most of our time here. So icing on the cake is I moved here in February, and I started rehearsals for Little Voice in February. So almost immediately upon arrival, I am now getting to explore more of the UK than I have before. With my concert tours as just a concert artist, I've played a lot of different cities around the UK, but typically for one night. I'm somewhere for, 32 hours at most.
Yeah.
So now to get to settle down for a week is beautiful. And a week here in Mull has been beautiful, just walking around seeing the scenery at that.
Yeah. Well, North Wales is beautiful at the best of times, but you've caught us on a good week, I think.
Yeah, very, very lucky. We brought the sunshine, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And when I've been interviewing most people over lockdown, even the biggest of stars, they've all said that they've quite enjoyed putting things out on YouTube. But this is something that's not new for you, right? This is how you actually started out.
Well, it's not how I started out, so I'll only correct you there because it's how most people noticed me, but I've been doing live performance for years, and it was at first a little bit frustrating. You're very grateful, but also like, really? This is what gets everyone's attention? A sloppy performance in a little piano bar at night? Yeah. But of course, when that little bit of attention leads to getting on television shows like Ellen DeGeneres show and the Paul O'Grady show and then traveling the world, you certainly don't, you won't hear me complain about the exposure it brought me.
Yeah.
But no, it's funny because when the pandemic happened and everybody went to social media and YouTube, I was the opposite at the beginning of the pandemic for about 5 months or so, which felt like an eternity. Looking back, it was just a little blip. But for about 5 months or so, I was so hesitant and reluctant to put anything out because I thought, oh gosh, this is what I do. This is what I've done. I need a break. And I'm someone who, if I've not been in a play or a musical, I'm still working. I'm still doing my own concert work. I'm doing workshops and readings of new musicals. I'm creating my own content for YouTube and social media and singing with symphonies. And I'm very lucky to work. But I also needed a break. I felt a little bit like it was a reset button in a way. So I kind of let everybody else do the YouTube thing for a while. And then after a while, my husband said to me, all right, stop moping about. Let's do something.
Yeah.
And then I challenged myself. I didn't do the same sort of content I've done before. So if your listeners want to go to my YouTube channel, which is just type my name in, Christina Bianco, my pandemic content, I will say, is definitely a step up from the stuff I've done before. Really started working with green screens and cool editing. And I challenged myself. And so that was a surprising thing. I think everybody tried to be creative in new ways. So, yeah, but it's funny that my initial thought was to resist it. I just thought, oh, no, I can't possibly do this. But ultimately it led to some good creative juices flowing. It was very good.
But I think that's a very good way of describing it, because I think we all, even people who weren't in show business, they all had to think outside the box just to work, really. And I find now that if anybody is kind of described as a TikTok or an Instagram or a YouTube star, it's often said in a kind of derogatory way, which must be quite frustrating, really, because it's often people with extremely amazing talents. They just haven't had their big break yet. That's all. It's
very hit or miss. I mean, not hit or miss. It's very, you don't know. There are plenty of people that have become famous on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok. I mean, back in the day, remember there was the whole Charlie bit my finger. I mean, that was the most viral YouTube video ever. But you can't take the Charlie bit my finger act on the road. And that was just something that happened naturally. When my YouTube video went viral, which was for people, I had a bunch go viral, but it was me singing Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart as 19 different celebrities. And when you sing, when you do something like that, that's actually entertainment, true form of entertainment, people then reach out, people who are professionals, people who are having their father's 30th birthday party, and say things like, oh, do you do this? Do you want to come perform? And obviously for me, it was funny because I had been a performer my whole life and created my own concerts and my own work, but I had not really been taking ownership of myself as an impressionist. So even when I was doing something when I was called to do something like the Ellen DeGeneres show, they would say things like, so you can come on and do this, right? You can do a performance. And I would just laugh to myself although this method, this sort of vehicle with the performance of doing impressions in one song, although that's not what I've been known for as a performer my whole life, I was easily able to take that and turn it into a bigger act, a bigger show for concerts with bands, for 15-minute corporate sets, for television appearances. And I would not be able to do that. I wouldn't have been able to do that and make the most of the attention and momentum and exposure that those social media outlets gave me if I had not been a quote-unquote seasoned professional. Yeah. And it's also funny because then they don't want you to be. I mean, I remember, it's not a bad thing, but when I was on the Ellen show, they were like, we don't want you to talk about her. You're like an award actress, in New York. And I'm thinking, but what does it have to do with this viral video? Nobody knows. I don't go around doing all these impressions, on a daily basis. And certainly I'm not a household name. So what does it really matter? But I think there's this desire to discover people who have these unknown hidden talents. And then alongside that, there's also a desire to sort of say, yeah, but they're just a YouTuber or just a thing. So it's really hard to strike that balance. But luckily, I've been able to work as Christina, who does impressions, and Christina, the actor and singer, equally. So I've never felt like one has sort of taken over my existence or become my identity. Was that a long enough answer for you?
That was
Sorry.
absolutely wonderful, because it actually it leads us perfectly on to your role in Little Voice, because if ever there was a role written for you and your particular talent, then this is it, right?
Yeah, I've wanted to do this play for, oh my gosh, for so long. When I was in high school, I think, the movie came out. And much like the character of LV, my father really introduced me to so many different styles and genres of music. So when he saw that the main sort of theme of this movie, which of course was previously an Olivier Award-winning play written by the great Jim Cartwright, he couldn't believe that it was about a girl who had this natural ability and natural ear for mimicry, and just sort of sang these different styles and genres in the voices of Judy Garland and Edith Piaf and Marilyn Monroe, and sort of effortlessly doing this. And that's what I did as a kid. I never walked around trying to perfect my Judy Garland or anything. I would just sing along to what was playing and sort of take on her tone and style. Same thing for, Julie Andrews as Mary Poppins or something like that. Yeah. I would just sing along, taking on those voices. So I loved that movie when I finally saw it. And then I said, oh, it's a play? And my father drove me to, in New York City, to the drama bookshop, and I got the script. And so, I was in high school when I had the script, and it's funny, it's still here. I'm looking at it right now. I always keep it with me for the run of the show. And I never knew that years later I'd be known for doing impressions, and that people would say to me, there's this play, Little Voice, you should really do it, It's like I never realized how important it would end up being in my life. And I've almost done the play now about 6 times. And of course, this production was supposed to happen in 2020. So it's been a long road, but well worth the wait. And I love it because I get to do these impressions I love, but I also get to exercise my acting ability as Christina. It's playing a part doing impressions. It's not Christina doing impressions. So it's extra difficult, but also extra cool.
But as an impressionist, it's a skill that doesn't ever fail to impress people. I came to see the show on Wednesday night, and
thank you.
I honestly, there was audible gasps in the auditorium every time when you do your medley in the second act there. And
thank you.
And
I can't hear that from the stage, so I'm glad.
But are there some voices that are harder to master than others? Some must be more challenging, surely.
Oh, definitely. There are some voices that sort of come out so easily. You're like, oh, that's great. It's a sort of an extension of my own voice. And I don't know why, but it is there. And there are others that are so different. I have to, what are some examples for you? So Edith Piaf, I've mentioned. I don't want to give away too much and tell you who's in the medley, but in general, Edith Piaf is somebody who has a very, very fast vibrato. That's the shake in the voice. And she's also a little nasal, but yet still has some grit to her voice at the same time. So my natural speaking voice and singing voice is nothing like that. So I have to stretch and squeeze and push and breathe differently and support differently and sort of manipulate my vocal cords to sound like her. So she's quite difficult. And then doing someone like the wonderful Shirley Bassey. Shirley Bassey's voice is so big and wide and broad, and I have to place it very much in the back of my throat to do that, whereas someone like Scylla is more nasal and forward. So you always have to think about how these voices can come out of your own, but also try to perform it well and sell it and take on their mannerisms and do it in a safe way. And and then there are the voices that are the most different from my own, which are typically very raspy voices. It's frustrating, but if I could do those voices, those more husky voiced women, there's no way I could do, a Scylla or a Broadway performer like Kristen Chenoweth, who has that voice that sounds like she's on helium. Everyone loves her, popular, I'm ever so popular. If I could do Elaine Stritch or or Bonnie Tyler, I wouldn't be able to do Kristen Chenoweth. So I just choose my battles.
Well, funny you should say that, because we were driving home on Wednesday night, and my daughter, because I was saying, how you sort of jump from one character to the next, one voice to the next, and she started doing a kind of Edith Piaf, and I thought,
there you go.
It was actually quite good, And I thought that was the hardest one, because it's so kind of alien to everything else that you do.
Yeah.
It's
but There are different pockets in the human voice, unless you sort of play around. You want to do it carefully. But it's amazing what you can do. It's like any muscle. You stretch and you get more flexible. So, yeah, if she can do an Edith Piaf, maybe you say, okay, what other voices out there are more similar to Edith Piaf? And then before you know it, she probably has 3 impressions under her belt.
yeah. She will be she'll be fighting for your job next.
That's all right. Good for her.
But Jim Cartwright, as you've just mentioned there, he's brilliant in having his audience in hysterics 1 minute and then wincing the next, as it's quite a disturbingly abusive play at times. You forget, really.
Yeah, and it's so funny because I always try to be really honest about it and talk about the balance of the show, because I can't say it's just a depressing, heavy drama, and I can't say it's just a comedy. The great thing about this show, and I think why it's endured for 30 years, it's pretty much the 30th anniversary of this play, is because it so beautifully balances the light and the dark of everyday life. I mean, Jim Cartwright's dialogue is it's very Shakespearean in its northern tongue, It's elaborate ways to say things that are so beautiful to listen to and so biting and cutting. And sometimes once the line is passed, you go back and you go, oh my God, that was the most profound thing I've ever heard. And then you on to the next thing. And I think it's because there's comedy and tragedy in every day. And particularly with the past few years we've all been through globally. If you can't laugh at certain things, you cry. And so it's better to laugh. And it's better to dust yourself off and sort of say, how can I rise from the ashes? And that's so much of what this play is about. So it's a treat and a challenge, and it's an emotional roller coaster every night, but everybody leaves uplifted. Nobody leaves depressed. And that's the beauty of Little Voice.
Absolutely. Wonderful. And it's your last night. You got 2 shows today in Theatre Clwyd. And then you tour literally everywhere. I'm looking at your tour now. It's quite an extensive thing. And you finish in July. So, I mean, you're back in the Northwest in Liverpool and Crewe. And
so if you can't come see the show tonight, everybody, please come to Liverpool, Crewe, Salford. Please do.
Absolutely. Christina, it's been a treat to speak to you this afternoon. Thanks ever so much for that. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I hope to see you all at the show.
Lovely. You take care of yourself, and good luck with the rest of your tour.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Take care. Bye. Rise and Fall of Little Voice closes at Theatre Clwyd this very evening. If you would like to try and get tickets, box office number 01352 344 101. That's 01352 344 101. Go on, support your local theatres, ladies and gentlemen. They won't be there forever if you don't.